のベースピクニック気分 feel so good 素敵なアフタヌーンプラチナみんな yeah 固めて転がす I love you いつでも smile for you 君だけにラムへそう頑張らなくちゃ Compilationお揃いの T シャツ Hey 手編みのマフラーと Oh yeah ハーフウォーミン目白し
good. My webcam died. Alright. Wonderful. Let me just, interesting. Alright, gonna have to do some real time, I suppose. We in here. Also, hi, my webcam is broken. By broken, I mean it just dies randomly sometimes. Even if it's entirely plugged in, so I'm fixing that in real time. If I do decide to upload this, which I probably will, I'll cut this bit. Take it down a little bit. I want to fix this a little bit. There we go. Alright. How am I going to get this? Am I just going to have to... You know what? Forget the fancy webcam. Forget that one. We're going old school. I'm not even going to deal with that old one right now. So, we in here. We living. So... Okay, I need to actually remember how to think about this. Pretty much what's gonna happen. This is still too loud for me. Turn that up a bit. Alright. I don't want this to be too loud for my ears. Also, that's enough of this track. That's too calm for right now. Perfect. Oh, don't worry. We're gonna get into it. It is a lot of tracks. Just be calm, be cool. So here's what's gonna happen. I did this. This is a full video that is released to the public on YouTube.gov right now. I'm gonna pull up a link so I can drop it in chat. I'm going into this assuming people have seen it. So if you haven't, it's right there. It's 45 minutes long because I'm insane. And we're gonna break down parts of this. Most of it is just kind of the same old, which I will also go into a little bit and then not touch the rest of the video. So this is what I have to work with most of the time. It's ridiculous and insane. Sometimes. At least it looks out of control nuts right now. But very basically... So this is what happens. Also, I never edit on only one monitor. I always use two. But right now, just to show it for streaming purposes, I have one. And in fact, it doesn't even look like this when I edit for streaming. I took this part and I just stretched it up as much as I wanted to fit all 8 tracks in. Because, oh my god. It's just a lot. So, we're gonna go through how I edit this kind of garbage. Well, first off, let me actually pause the music. Let me break down what each layer is. What each of the tracks are. Why is that? Oh, I know why I turned that layer off, because I needed to get a frame for the thumbnail. So, here's what this is. Video layer 1, that's mostly just footage from the show I'm talking about. Occasionally, I will need stuff to go below the footage, so when that happens, it gets replaced by this white background. Which is like a cardboard texture? I'm not really sure. It's just something I found on the internet. And it's a perfect 1920 by 1080, so that works. Second layer, that's like when I do these segments where I literally show a segment of the show verbatim. That's what I drop the footage into. Otherwise, that's sometimes where like random text layers will go. Or just... Yeah, basically that. It doesn't get used... It gets used occasionally, but it's not like a constant. Also, yeah, you can already see right now, everything is slowing down. Because it turns out when you have 4 layers of audio and 4 layers of video, and they're constantly moving, things tend to slow down if you don't have a super good computer. Which I have an okay one. So, video 3 only ever gets used when I have footage to talk about, something below the footage or another layer of text, and I still need something else. Like right here, there's a background that visually makes it clear that, hey, I'm talking about a piece of footage I ripped directly from the show. This is not just, the same old. Then I have the footage. Then I have the 3rd layer. And this entire 4th layer on top is just episode markers. Except for this little bit, because reasons. Audio. This top layer is, I guess there's no like, I don't know. I guess this part doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter which sound goes in which layer, except for organization. So this entire first layer is just narration, or occasionally when I do on-camera stuff, that's where the audio goes. That's a really fun frame. This layer is just cutaway audio for like, well, like when I cut away to the main footage, that's where I put the audio from the footage. These two are linked, so that if I were to move this all over the place, I move the video, but the audio moves with it. That kind of thing. Anything that happens to one also happens to the other, except for transitions, which can be separate. Also effects. I can put an effect on the audio, and it won't affect the video. 3rd layer, that's where all the music goes. It's just music all the way down. 4th layer is sound effects. That gets used 1, 2, 3, 4 times. In one of the segments, I needed to blend the sound effects with each other. We'll go over that later. So I just had to use both the cutaway layer and the sound effects layer. That doesn't matter that much. Also, sometimes I needed to blend, I need to fade the music out here, but also have other music cut in while it's still fading out. So it's mostly sound effects, but also just miscellaneous music or sounds. Most of what I do for this, it's literally just like, it's as simple as it looks. It's basically, I go through the footage. I listen to, let's cut this layer. So most of it is this process. So I go through the narration that I've already laid out. Mostly trite and reused. The show does just enough with them. So now I kind of have an idea of what needs to go there. Then I go through the footage. I believe it's this one. Yeah. Then I go through the footage, go like, hey, let's do this kind of thing. That should be fine. Just drop that. Drop an in point and an out point. Then I can go over, use, click and hold, use video. Bam! Now I've got just the video from that segment to work with. Drop it in there, but, oh no, it looks like garbage. Because it turns out, the footage I'm working with isn't 1920 by 1080, it's 720 by 480. Which is bad. And also, it's not the same color as the rest of this footage because it has not been labeled. Which, thank God, they added labels in some update. Like a while ago. So I can, boop, drop down the, slap a label onto it, right-click, transform, fit to frame height, and now it looks good. I do not, under any circumstances, or at least I should not, oh, it's lagging. Ooh, it's lagging. Okay, cool. Under no circumstances do I go to the transform, fit to frame. That stretches the video. You can see the difference side by side. It's subtle, but it's there. In fact, it's not really so subtle. Everything is stretched. So that it fits with not only the top and bottom, but also the left and right. That fits everything perfectly with the dimensions of the frame. Of course, if I set the frame height, hey, cool. Now the footage looks good, and there is some side stuff which I can play with at times. It's fine, don't worry about it. So for the most part, that's what I do every single time. I listen to the narration of what happened to Phantom Lord from to get a feeling of to get an idea of what I need to put there. I go through the footage. I go, hey, this part looks good. Drop an in point, drop an out point, slide the footage into there, mess with it so that everything looks all uniform. That is what I do for 90% of this. Then we get into this stuff. This stuff, when I actually reference when I reference exactly what happens in the original footage. Hold on, need to get rid of an @ on Discord because that annoys me. Okay. Alright, cool. So, when I have these segments where I reference exactly what happens in the footage proper, probably shouldn't use this one for reasons. So let's go with this one. So let's say I'm just kind of going through the footage.
Being met with
Let's turn that down a bit more now. So let's say I'm going through the footage,
grief and trauma,
and then all of a sudden, my script calls for, let's literally just take the footage from the show because I need to reference it. So it's a lot of simple effects that I just build on top of each other. So first up,
dismissal.
Yeah, so first up, it's this entire section. So again, use all 4 layers of video, usually just 3. I only really worry about 2 because video 4, which is the episode marker, is just kind of a constant, and video 3 sometimes gets used. So what happens here is I need to find a way to smoothly being the key word here, blend me using this as kind of B-roll footage and what actually happens. So how do I do it? Well, first off, let me show you what it looks like when that doesn't happen. Do I have the... I'll have to find it. Alright, let's do that. Nope. So let's bring up an old project file of mine. Oh yeah, this is hit film. Haha, lol, funny. This happens every time. Don't worry about it. It's basically, hey, news. Oh, that's right. Okay. Maybe this won't be so simple then. Because it turns out, most of this footage in this old project file... Well, first off, First off, I should probably... Yeah, the size for these are weird because this is before stuff. And also, most of the footage either doesn't exist on my hard drive or doesn't exist in the exact spot that this thinks it's in. So, like, there should be narration playing right now, so that's probably a bad idea. Oh, wait, never mind. I know what's up. Okay, so I need to... Get out of here. Do that because every time I change project files, the just HitFilm bonks out for some reason and doesn't like to work. So you know what? That's not really going to work. I'm not really going to be able to properly... Actually, I can. I lied. I don't need to bring up a new project file. I just need to... stay in the one I'm currently using. So now we're back. Okay, cool. Nothing happened. So for these segments, this is going to give you a little bit of insight into how I do things. Let's take these transitions and get rid of all of them. So now you can see what it looks like when I don't implement any sort of transition. HitFilm has done that to me too. It happens all the time. So let's say I'm in the footage proper, and I'm in just footage that I'm using to kind of help you make sense of things, which is most of it. And then I need to transition to exactly what happens in the show. This is what it looks like if I implement... Actually, hold on. This is what it looks like when I implement absolutely no transitions whatsoever. We start with the footage here.
Appearance.
Bam. Instantly, everything's different. We go from
Physical
this
appearance.
to this. The size of the footage has changed. There's all of a sudden this white background now. It's visually very jarring. So now if I add the transitions back in, save over that now. Now when I do that, we can see that exact same effect with the transitions.
Physical appearance.
There's a little bit of, like, easing you into it that's going on. So what I do for that is I dissolve out of the footage. There's also an audio fade, but that doesn't matter so much with the music. Well, it does matter, but not entirely for this. So the footage here and the audio fade out. The new footage, rather the background, fades in, and then at the same time, the footage, audio, and video fades in. Except the video doesn't get faded in; it gets pushed down. I do neat stuff with this later on, and then there's some text here that's important that fades in and out. And then the same thing happens in reverse when it's done. It gets just pushed down, like get out of here, and everything fades out. This time the music doesn't fade in automatically because there's a storytelling effect I'm doing here, kind of, which is like, hey, there's no music, so this segment right here, that's something important, kind of. So this happens a lot. When I'm doing the editing, what I do is like once I've got a session of narration recorded. In this case, I do 3 sessions because of timing reasons, scheduling reasons. So once I have the narration recorded, then I do the mixing and mastering that I do in Audacity. Then I slap it in here, and then I just start cutting it up. Because on its own, it just looks like... it's not... Is it in there? Okay, it is. On its own, these segments it's just this. Like the first session of narration was 32 minutes long. And there's a lot of just like there's failed takes in here. And just random pauses that don't need to be there. Sometimes I had to stop and check something. So I need to cut it up, make it flow properly. I used to do that part in Audacity, but that doesn't work out so well. At least, that led to some weird dialogue flow. So now I do it in HitFilm. That's why instead of the narration just being one smooth, solid line and block, like the text is for the most part, it's all cut up. Because that gives me the ability to change little bits of it, and if I need to re-record a line, I can just delete that, slap in the new line. Real simple. These segments, I throw in the timeline as I'm cutting up the dialogue, or narration rather. So this happens quite a lot. Most of these little pillars will be that same style of effect. That same, I'm referencing the literal events of the footage verbatim. That kind of thing. Other times it's just like, hey, there's a thing of text, don't worry about that. And yeah, sometimes, there's also text being implemented. It's a lot of that. Nothing too crazy, but it's important that it gets done. Let's see. What else could I probably reference? Yeah, there's not a lot of super complex or even decently complex things in here. It's a lot of just I could probably demonstrate I could probably demonstrate a couple like what I mean when I say cutaway for that layer. So you'll notice in the actual video sometimes the narration will literally cut away to something else in in an interesting voice or with a different or with a different flow and a different feel to it. That is typically because I need to. Lost my train of thought. Someone's being banged around downstairs. That's fine. That is usually because I need to literally like I'm speaking like in like the kind of cadence or with the feel of a character or something. So like for this line,
to go away to protect them, while the writing maintains the all too familiar, "We're your friends, we're gonna help you."
so that's when it goes directly from me just being a narrator, giving you exactly what happens, to now I'm in the mindset of the characters. I need to directly cut away from one to the other, make it very obvious which one it is. So that happens every now and then. That's not like the most prominent effect. Well, except there is one time I break that kind of, and it's for a neat little effect. So it's this.
I always say enhanced interrogation.
Oh yeah, that's what that was for. Don't worry about that.
A revolt is staged because they can't stop us all.
Because I'm crazy and weird. Other times, I block that. Other times I use the cutaway lane or layer, I guess, when I need to like censor something I say. Because like I only really censor like one specific swear word. Other times I just don't really care. I just say whatever I want. But if I'm saying the F word, kind of gotta censor that. At least I feel I do. Also, sometimes it makes for like better deliveries if I do that. I don't know, it's fine. So like for this effect,
The question Seraph, which only calls into question what the that purple goop.
fun fact, that sound effect is literally just a what is it exactly? It's a 1000 hertz / 1 kilohertz, I guess, sine wave. That's all it is. So I have 30 full seconds of because that's the shortest duration I could find on YouTube, of just a 1 kilohertz sine wave. That's all this is. So you can see I took like this small little portion of it, just like, cool, there's that. Same thing as the video, just slap that in there. You learned something today. Just a 1 kilohertz sine wave. That's all it is. What else do I need to go over? Oh, that's right. Sometimes transitions can be used to add like, I don't know what I'm saying there. It's like sometimes you can do cool stuff with just a lot of things that happen in the effects tab. You're gonna want to get familiar with this. So let's say, for instance, I'm in a segment where there's got to be a flashback that happens. I've done this every now and then, particularly with the Phantom Lord arc, and this one, mostly this one to be honest. So let's say there's a character that's happening. At some point in the story, she's gonna have a flashback about stuff.
Relaxing in the evening, she has.
I can add a transition, fade to color, set that to white, and then fade, and then reverse that. I guess okay, yeah, this is just one transition. So you could, with HitFilm,
The evening, she has a
do that kind of thing where this first video clip goes through the fade to white transition, but then nothing. That's really jarring, but you can take these transitions, slap them between two clips that are touching. Now it fades from the footage to white, which normally it's preset to black, but you can set it to fade to any color. And then it fades out from white into this new clip. Also add a crossfade, because that looks cool, but that's delayed. This thing right here, though, technically speaking, that is not exactly how the original footage looks. I messed with it a bit. By messed with it, I mean I added... Okay, that's right. I added 2 effects here. Both of them are the same effect, I just changed some stuff. So if I were to turn both these off, this is what the original footage looks like. What I did here is, because it's a flashback, boom, and a white vignette. Well, rather, yeah, it's a normal vignette, but Oh, I guess I did mess with this one a little bit. I had this, normally I had it set to HD high key. Oh, yes it is just HD high key. Yeah, that's how you get that. That's how you get it to do that. But this is also a dark flashback. So I also wanted a dark vignette, which this one, I forgot exactly what it is. Wasn't heavy, it wasn't HD vintage, wasn't HD soft, wasn't HD moderate. Was it HD heavy? I don't remember. So I wanted to have both a white vignette to indicate it's a flashback and a black vignette to indicate that, hey, this is kind of a dark scene. So boom. Slap them both together. Now it's like that. Interestingly enough, though, I think... In fact, I'm positive, yeah. Interestingly enough, the order these are in does kind of matter. So this is the dark vignette on top. If I were to put it below the white vignette, now this is changed. I'm not entirely 100% sure why it does that, but it does that. So now this gives you like, hey, you go from a normal kind of scene to, oh, now it's a dark flashback. Something bad's happening here. That kind of thing. So that's fun. Sometimes you can just mess with footage in weird ways by doing that. What else do I want to go over that happens in the beginning portions? Is there any other, like... Oh, yeah. So, one of the... Dalton, you might want to learn this. One of the weird things about HitFilm is that you can't, like, on your own, clip out a segment of a video that's just, like you can't turn a video into an image. Actually, I want to move it down a bit. So if you have a video in the timeline, you can't take any part of it and treat it as if it's an image. You just can't do it. Which is annoying sometimes, because sometimes I want to treat it as an image. So for this segment, sometimes I literally have to like take the video. This is from previous arc analysis. Fun fact, the second one. And then I'll go to the point where I want it to turn into an image. Set the viewer onto that. Go into Options, Export Frame. Then I can set that frame anywhere I want in my hard drive. Then I import that back into the Media tab. In fact, here it is right here. This is the image that matches up with this part of the video exactly. So then I can just slap that in there, and then I added some keyframes in here, that's fine. If you want me to explain keyframes, Dalton, I can absolutely do that. Because keyframes are kind of it's just basic bread and butter when it comes to video editing. So sometimes that happens. What else would I need to go over? There is some stuff later on that I'm definitely gonna want to go over. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about the extreme importance of organizing, and especially using labeling when working with footage. So like this right here looks pretty complicated. There's a lot of various stuff happening in this segment of the footage, or of the video. This is the most complicated looking part of the video, at least from a timeline perspective. This part of the timeline looks ridiculous, but it's not nearly as complicated as it looks. Part of that is because I use labeling. In fact, I have a sticky note that is currently being covered up by my desk lamp on my desk, so that in case I ever forget what the colors of the labels mean, or in this case what the numbers mean, because if I were to go into the labeling tab, right click mouse over labeling, these have numbers attached to them, which correlate to the actual number pad number keys. So in case I ever forget what they mean, or what they should generally correlate to, I can reference it at any time. That helps me understand intuitively, at a glance, what things are. So that with me knowing my own script and my own video, I can look at this and I know exactly what these things are. So I can instantly go, oh cool, this is the live action thing where I throw off my headphones and start screaming into the camera. Or in this case, the camera's here. I'm screaming into my laptop. And occasionally the camera. So I instantly know at a glance that's what this is. I know at a glance that this is narration. It always is and it's always going to be. I know that this is, hey, this is the audio that correlates to the above original footage. There's some cutaway stuff there, which is just me, which is more of me. That shot, oh, it's very good. So yeah, it looks complicated, but just by labeling everything and knowing what the labels mean, it helps me instantly know what is what, so that I don't have to like zoom in and like scroll through and go like, all right, what's this part? Okay, that's this part is just original footage from the show. Okay, what's this part? Oh, what's this part? Oh, this is text. This layer correlates to this text part. Yeah, okay, now instead of having to go through all of that, I can just know, boom, red, original image background, done. Moving on. It saves a lot of time and a lot of frustration. Then what else could I? Oh yeah, here's a fun thing. You might not recognize, or you might not see if you're not paying enough attention. But for 2 frames, I edit videos in 60 frames per second. So for 2 of those frames, there's a bit of text. There you go. Here's a fun fact. Literally just 2 frames. I don't know, I thought that was fun. I probably could have extended it to 3 or 4 frames, because it goes by
Now.
incredibly quickly. Like, you could just barely recognize there was something there, but not what it was. So yeah, that's the thing. Is there anything else? Well, rather, I know there is other stuff, so what else could I talk about? There's more of me adding effects to the original footage to make it very clear to you guys that, hey, this segment is a flashback. This segment. But for these, I don't use multiple vignettes. I just use one, which is set to HD high key. Because it makes it obvious. Also, if I were to give you one absolutely most important tip when it comes to editing, save constantly. The moment you do anything you're satisfied with, Control S. That's it. You need to do it all the time. I actually hit Control A, so that's selected everything. I don't ever use that. If you're doing any kind of video editing, the instant you make a change that you are happy with and satisfied with, and that you do not want to lose, Control S. I cannot stress that enough. It is so frustrating to work for an hour and a half, get a lot of work done, and then something happens, HitFilm crashes, and all of it's gone. I speak from experience. It is painful beyond belief when that happens. So anytime you do anything worth saving, Control S. Oh my, yeah. That is the most important thing you will ever learn when it comes to video editing. Because just doing that prevents you from losing time. Also, well, another helpful tip is to organize your hard drive. Organize where you have your audio and video assets. Just on your hard drive, on your computer, whatever. Try to keep that somewhat organized so that you don't just do what I do at half the time and have random disparate footage in random places. It helps keep that organized. What else could I go over next? Yeah, there's just more cutaway footage. Oh yeah, this, I don't know what this is. This is not cutaway footage, or cutaway narration. That is a line that maybe possibly could have been re-recorded, but I couldn't really figure out a way to make that happen. This is one of my favorite parts. This took like an hour to get right. Not quite an hour. It took me like half an hour to get it exactly right. No, closer to an hour, because I went back to it later. About an hour. For this bit. So, what's going on here? Well, basically, for this part, this is supposed to be one of the big, epic, like, oh god, people are going to die right now moments. And for a neat effect, I wanted to use the same 2 music tracks that the show uses for these scenes. So I did. Turns out one of them, Dalton, you're gonna like it. It's a concerto, piano concerto from Sergei Rachmaninoff, whom I love. Or at the very least, I love the piano concerto. I'd recommend giving it a look. Piano Concerto number 2 in C minor. The beginning of it is just flawless, and that's what they use in the original footage. And I completely agree why. So that's what this is. This music is kind of like an epic, it's building, tension is building, and then right here, oops, something really bad happens. So I wanted to emulate that and heighten it in my version. So I did the same thing. I had the audio track fade in. It builds. Then when it gets to this point, I start adding some keyframes. So from this point, I'm going to go into this so you can see it a little bit better now. What are these ones for? What? Oh, I know. Okay, never mind. I know what those are. Cool. So for this bit, I start slowly bringing the audio levels from -24 to -17. That's not an intense change over a period of 3 seconds-ish. But like you can recognize that it's there and that oops, something's building even faster now. And then from that point it goes from -17 to -9 over the course of not even a second. That's an even bigger change. So I wanted to kind of like it's supposed to like, because like the track is naturally ramping up, especially this point, but I wanted to ramp it up even higher. So that's what those keyframes are for. Also, because at this point, the narration ends, and that's when the sound effects take over. So I just want to play this bit verbatim. Starting with the keyframe buildup. And then I'll talk about it afterwards. This is it. Only Oblivion. Oh, wait, what? The dust settles, the sky clears. And that's that. So that's one of my favorite parts of the entire video. So what happens? Well, again, the music right beforehand starts to build. Now it's in an epic climax. The music itself demonstrates this, along with the volume level. So you know, oops, everyone's dying now. Supposedly, we'll get to that. But since this is an epic thing, I didn't want it to be just music, because hey, that's kind of boring. What if I had death laser sound effects? So that's what these four are. Well, this one's not that, but it's close. So what I did was I found an audio file on YouTube. I find a lot of fun things on YouTube. Which is, oh, that's right, this is so loud. All right, I'm gonna turn down the. You're learning so much. I'm glad to hear it, because I have most of what I do is it's a lot of simple things, but getting to those simple things requires a certain amount of insight, and that's what I have. Because I've been doing like small editing projects, I should say, not jobs. I don't get paid for this. I do this as a hobby, but one day I want to do it as a career. So a lot of it's just like doing small things which you learn by gaining insight. And that's the biggest reason why I'm doing this. Just, I'm sharing my insight. Every other has different ways of attaining their insight and sharing their insight or whatever. It's a lot of that. So what I did for this part is, well, this is its own separate audio file. What? Okay. I guess my headphone jack got unplugged for a bit, but now we're good. So for this, I just took I turned it down for you stream, folks, because this is gonna be loud for me. So I took that audio file, bring it back into minus 13. So I took that as kind of this is all literally just DBZ old Dragon Ball sound effects. Because, hey, it's a giant death laser. Why not? It seems to fit. So I took a part of that. You can tell what it is because of these lines. Took those in and out points, slapped them in the footage. Then messed with it to match the timing of everything that I wanted. And then messed with the volume. I think I also... I'm pretty sure I added some kind of effect to this. I did. Okay, good. So this will be a good time to go over this. So, if I go back to what these three sound effects are, these are all from the same audio file. Which is just, hey, Dragon Ball Super Final Flash. Sound effects, many of them. So this is just a variation of like, hey, that's one sound effect. Then there's another. Then there's another. It's just a sound effect supercut, essentially. Things like these are kind of helpful because they save the trouble of having 36 million files in a single folder. And that can help sometimes. That really helps me with this because this contains everything I want. So if I were to cut away the music and this layer for right now. All of these, I had to pitch them a little bit so that they all sounded kind of uniform. So if I were to go and turn off all of the effects, this one doesn't have any, I guess. If I were to turn off all of the pitching effects and just play all of this with all the audio blended, of course. If I were to just play this all straight, like, probably shouldn't have saved it there, but that's okay. I can just roll it back. Let's play through all of this part with no pitching effects.
Wait, what?
Cut with the narration too. Already there's a problem. So you can tell that, hey, these don't quite sound like they're all like one singular laser that is constantly being shot and murdering people. It sounds like there's multiple. And that kind of dissonance is very confusing. So what I did was for all these, I added a pitch effect. So if we were to take just this first one, for example, without the pitch, it's very low and deep. Add the pitch effect, slightly less so. That fades a little bit better into this one. Also, I added literal fades so that, again, they blend with each other. Because if I were to take those away, remember that first example I showed you of all the new video tracks just clicking into place? It is even more jarring with audio. You know what? Let me show you. Once I reinstate the pitch effects. So now, with absolutely no fade effects, to blend the audio, the sound effects together, this is what it sounds like. One starts. Another one starts. First one ends. Another one starts. The second one ends. That is so jarring. Like, no, bad, very bad. So that's, I keep knocking over a model I'm painting. So that is why you add these fade effects everywhere. They're very important. Because now, with the pitch effects, if I were to play them, with all of that timed kind of nicely with the footage, now this gives the effect of just, this is a single death laser. So now that you know all of that, let's watch it again. There was a little bit of weirdness around here, but that's mostly mitigated once the music is in place. So listening to this with the music added now, which kind of covers up a little bit of the weirdness. Something about that didn't quite sound right. Oh, okay, I see why. Because I had one part of my headphones off, and a lot of the high registers in the music was playing the left ear. So then we get into more interesting stuff. You can kind of see it. Oh, you can definitely see it over here. So some tracks I cannot just slap them in the timeline and that's it. March the Oblique is the perfect example of such. I need to add keyframes because sometimes certain parts of the music are quieter or louder than other parts, and I need to have a consistent level of hearability between the narration and the music. It can't sound like music is randomly popping in. It needs to sound natural. So that's why I add a lot of audio keyframes into here. Because oh god, March the Oblique by Brian Ballmages is ridiculous if I don't have those. And I do the same exact thing with Rachmaninoff here. Like, nope, I messed that up. So just looking at all of this, that's a lot of keyframes. So I'm going to turn off the narration. I guess it was already off. We're going to go over this part. So yeah, the laser scene happens. Yada yada. It looks like everything is dead. Then we gently fade from that. And then the music starts very quiet, so I don't have a fade effect on that. That just pops in too. That was the best way I could think of to blend these vastly different music tracks together. And you can see right now with no audio effects, with no keyframing, well I guess there's a slight amount of keyframing, the piece naturally builds, but if I don't have the keyframes it builds a little too much, so I need to tamper that down a little bit. I do this stuff just kind of constantly throughout. And it's yeah, then at this point, it's pretty much good. The rest of this is pretty solid. Although I will say, this is a very good track. Bring up to -9, that should be better. So this kind of plays throughout. Oh, this is a huge revelation. Remember that death laser that was supposedly killed everybody? No, it turns out that didn't happen. They're all still alive because This guy is a maniac for reasons. So this giant tower of crystals absorbed the death laser, and this is an enormous revelation. So that is why I had Rachmaninoff in here like the original footage did, because this is mind-blowing. And unlike a lot of the other mind-blowing plot twists in other arcs of the show, this one works. And it gets better. In fact, I'm going to show off one other effect I achieve. The music does get a little bit weirder on this part because there's a certain exact place I wanted to end the music in time with the narration and with the video. So I had to blend this a little bit, and I didn't do the greatest job. So let's show that off.
Tie the whole thing together in a beautiful package. This moment keeps getting better, by the way, as the music builds further, and the only council member who voted not to fire, Yajima,
So you can see that
moves
the
to
music is
question
building in
Seagrain.
places.
He
It goes from
vanishes,
-16 to minus
as if
to
he was
-12,
never
so
there
kind
to
of
begin with.
up a bit.
And we find him now at the tower with Urza and Jalal.
And then here it's pretty
They
much
all make
standard.
some interesting banter before Seagrain and
And then
Jalal
this
pull
effect.
some even crazier twists. Not only have they been in cahoots with each other this whole time, but the two of them are actually the same person.
There we go. This effect, well, this revelation that two people are actually one person is even more of a mind-blowing twist than the tower that was murdered being crystals. So this absolutely needs to be timed properly with the music. Because this part of this last part of the track, where I had to fade everything here, I faded this because it ends at the exact right moment to have this big kind of build. What's happening? Bam, there it is. There's the revelation. That track, where it is perfect for that. So I had to edit around it with some keyframes to help aid in the building of the tension. And also to keep this in line with the narration, because the narration is more important. So let's watch that again.
Questions Seagrain, he vanishes as if he was never there to begin with. And we
There's
find
weird,
him
there's weird stuff going on in the music. It's just the music's like fast and quiet and crazy. Right at this part where, oops, a person literally just vanished and now they're here, I guess? What's up with that? So I had to time that. Well, that one was just kind of incidental. Sometimes you'll find in my line of work here that sometimes things will just fit together perfectly. It's great.
now at the tower with Urza and Jalal. They all make some interesting banter before Seagrain and Jalal pull some
So right around when I start saying, hey, these two are going to pull even crazier twists, the music gets back to the crazy, intense part.
before Seagrain and Jalal
Right here.
pull some even crazier twists.
So it's like, wait, they're pulling more crazy twists? What is happening? The music is helping to aid the narration, and the visuals are also helping to aid the narration. Everything is synchronous. There's no part of this that detracts from any other part. Every single layer of this needs to blend everything else together and lift everything else up. Especially with huge, big, important revelations like this. That is immensely important. It's not super complicated from an editing standpoint. It's more so from a writing standpoint. But in the editing process, that's when I start to, oops, now all these need to be connected in exactly this way. There's no real effect or easy trick I can explain that helps with this. It's a lot of just like knowing your footage, knowing how you're approaching your footage, and knowing how to make it work in the edit. And I can't explain that properly. All of that comes from experience and from the insight you gain from learning other things. So let's watch part of that again.
Before Seagrain and Jalal pull some even crazier twists. Not only have they been in cahoots with each other this whole time, but the two of them are actually the same person. Seagrain was simply a...
And then immediately I transitioned to, oops, this is a very literally dark music track, because that revelation is supposed to be mind-bending. And this track helps to emphasize that. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on in this entire video. A lot of just like, well, most of the music that I have helps to service whatever emotion the video is trying to promote, and therefore what I am trying to promote. This is supposed to feel like a crazy oh my god moment. So that's why I transitioned directly from a tragic epic piece, as I describe it, into nothingness for the big revelation line, and then to a piece that just screams, "You have no hope now." It's, again, this is more stuff that just comes with gaining insight and gaining experience with just editing and storytelling in general. Just everything like that. Each piece of the video must be synchronized with the other in some way. In my opinion, from my perspective. Everything is in service of the story.
Of them are actually the same
So like,
person.
oops, that's crazy.
Seagreen
Boom.
was simply a
That's the kind of effect I want. Then there's more simple stuff, nothing really worth talking about. But this part, this whole section right here, this needed to be on point. So that's why I did all the things I did. That's why I focused so much on it. Oh, this will be a fun effect. I did this on stream at one point, and I still have the... I never uploaded it to YouTube because it was boring, dumb, and stupid. Nobody showed up. Which is fine. So, basically what happens here is this is when, like this is a big moment in the footage, or at least in my video, because earlier I mentioned, hey, there's a bunch of writing and characterization problems. And then later I bring it back up saying, well, okay, now, roughly now is when the problems are going to start, but not yet. And then here's when I say, now those characterization and writing problems come crashing back in. And now I can't avoid talking about it. So I do a neat little effect here. First off, the music is epic because this is supposed to be
bit.
this is supposed to be a part of the original footage where this guy's like, you know what? You're messing me up. You're messing up my plans. I'm going to kill you now. Okay, so my computer decided to die randomly. I don't know how or why, but my laptop just decided, no, you're gonna shut down now. So that's great. It was something about having it. You've got dangerously low memory or whatever. So I freed up some space. We should be good. I need to go through this later and really make sure that everything will be fine, and also kind of double down on saving for a new PC, or I guess a PC, because I just have a laptop right now and I want to have an actual PC. Might be nice. So we're back. Well, that was crazy. And frustrating. That better not happen again. Otherwise, I'm going to have to really reevaluate some stuff. There's a video I'll have to watch later. Shut up, laptop. I don't care. Am I coming? Okay, good. Well, I'm coming through. So we should be fine. I think, I hope, I pray to whatever God will listen. Which is precisely nobody. Alright. I think we'll be okay. Round 2. Yeah, I agree. We're okay, good. We are back. That is stressful. Okay, we're back. So what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, this part. So this is okay, good. This isn't crashing instantly right now. So yeah, this is part of footage of this guy. It's like, hey, you protagonist boy, you're messing up my plans. I'm gonna literally kill you. So, fun music track from Kingdom Hearts, and then right here is when the effect starts. You will see this looks a little bit crazy. It's not nearly as crazy as it looks, I promise. But it was difficult to edit. Not difficult to edit, it just took time. So, this is also kind of an example of how you can use different effects to get the same result, or a similar result, in some way. So what happens here, I'm just going to play it. First up, the music builds right here, because of reasons. So here's what happens.
Finishes charging, Jalal hurls it towards both Urza and Natsu, and now is when the problems begin. Because the blast doesn't hit either of them. It instead hits Simon, who jumped in the way of the blast to die instead of Urza or Natsu.
So there's a lot that happens there. It's kind of busy. Intentionally. So what I wanted is right when I start saying the line, oh, now right when I bring it up, okay, the problems I mentioned, now they're happening. I can't avoid talking about them because they are in my face right now. So I wanted the video to kind of pause a bit. So I'm going to cut away the music so we can just look at, and the narration, so we can just look at what visually happens. So this is the footage at normal speed, and then boom, all of a sudden everything starts happening. So actually, if this isn't even like normal speed, I'm pretty sure I set this to, yeah, it's roughly 82%. So it's not going as fast as the original footage. Then after that, all three of these clips are the same clip. I just cut them differently because now this part, this middle segment goes at 16% speed. So it really doesn't move that much. And then right here, moves at 2%. 2.75. And also here, there's a bit of a grayscale effect added. Which actually uses two different effects. But those, if you go into the effects tab, can be found all the way down at presets. not 2D effects. Film looks, black and white. It's just a simple going to black and white. HitFilm automatically puts both effects on, both hue, saturation, and lightness, and brightness and contrast. I don't really know how to work either of these properly. Nor did I know that both of these would properly add the black and white effect I was looking for. So what happens here? Well, I do know what the saturation does. More saturation means the black and white effect is stronger. And I wanted it to fade to black and white. Because that is enough of a visual indication that, hey, we gotta pause. Let's talk about this. So what I did, if you hit this little display timeline thing in the controls tab, now we can look at some keyframes. So that's what I did. I just keyframed the hue, saturation, and lightness from 0 to 100%. Rather, to negative 100, because if I were to put it at positive 100, yeesh. Now it looks like she's on fire. So that happens. So I do that to slow, or to visually signify everything is slowing down now. Now it's completely stopped. Let's fade out. I gotta mention something. Also, this is bothering me right now for some reason. I gotta set the checkerboard background. So yeah, checkerboard background is very good. because now it's very easy to distinguish what part of the screen is actually colored black and what part is just transparency. In fact, here I just mess with the opacity. So that happens. The music slowing down, as we can re-demonstrate, you can see it's really choppy. And it doesn't sound the greatest. But, with the narration in place...
And now is when the problems begin.
Cool. That covers up the bad bits. So what I did here... no, don't do that. Was I painstakingly... I took this. What I did was, like, past this point, I lengthened the footage... yeah, so past this point, I cut it here, took this portion, changed the speed. From here it goes to 100%, and then it just keeps going down by 5% speed every segment. So that when it gets to here, it's running at 50% speed. So that it is chugging really slow. And then it fades back much quicker. So every 16 frames, pretty sure it's 16? 16 frames. Every 16 frames, the speed goes down 5%. And also, the volume does too. The cutting it so that I can change the speed part, I don't really know of a way to change. But there is an easier way I could have changed the volume here. I could have just gone to the music tab, hit toggle track/object envelopes, keyframed that on its own. In fact, it wouldn't even take that long. I just did it now. That would have easily achieved that effect. But I thought, that's really stupid. Why don't I just... They're already cut up, let's just do it my way. So there's an example of multiple ways to achieve the same thing. So that's that. Yeah, so yeah, everything... Well, first off, the music builds like normal.
Towards both Urza and Natsu,
It's like epic, epic,
and
epic.
now
Oh, we
is
gotta
when the
talk about
problems
this. That's basically what all of this is supposed to signify. On a subconscious level, it's supposed to be, oh, something's happening, it's really bad, it's really bad, it's really bad. Are they gonna die this time? Wait. We need to talk. And then, in here, instead of changing every 16 frames, the speed and volume changes every 8. But are roughly the same speed. Or roughly the same amount each time. Then, I do another similar music effect like I did before with the big revelation that 2 people are 1 person. Here. This is one of those big moments where it's like, oh hey, main character taps into newfound powers and attains a new form. Which doesn't even get explained properly, but I explained that in the video. So what I did here was this specific track I chose. It's kind of peaceful sounding for a bit, and then it kind of builds and builds and builds at the end, and then whoop, fades away. And that's when I wanted this specific line to be. So if I were to play through that part,
and fully attains the power boost he was looking for. The legendary form only Dragon Slayers can reach, which taps into the full might of a dragon. Dragon Force.
There we go. I wanted that to specifically be there because, hey, this is important. I gotta cut away everything else so you hear that line. And then I immediately go into, oh, but by the way, all that sucked. Then we get into a neat little thing I do sometimes now. Or I have a little bit of an editor's note, even though I am the person who, on my own, does all of the work. So, basically, this whole segment is me stopping everything even more than normal and just talking. Because something happened that I need to really talk about. But since this is super long, I wanted to add some other stuff. So let's talk about what actually happens here. First up, let me just get rid of these.
Okay, so turn.
The background fades in. Real fast. Yeah, the background fades in real fast. Second, the instant this footage stops and this background begins,
Say now. Okay, so
a text layer instantly shows up. Let me just really demonstrate that frame by frame. So we go through this is the normal footage, then oh, something happened. Never mind, I just clicked on something else without realizing it. It's fine. Headfilm was finicky like that. So we go boop boop footage, 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 bam. That happens instantly. But it gets covered up because I have this frame. This is another example of, if I were to cut that away and temporarily take this out of the picture. So with no text, this is what it's supposed to look like. It's video,
Okay, so
and now it's an image. That's what's supposed to happen. So combine all that stuff together. Wait, also just, yeah, some keyframes on this part. Basically, just changing the position and the scale. I changed the scale from 100% to 75%, so it's just like, whoop, hold up. We gotta talk. That kind of thing. And then I also changed the position because I didn't want to just go straight to the towards the middle. Okay, hold on. Since we're talking about keyframes, I want to talk about something. So, you'll find with literally everything here. Oh wait, there's another effect I wanted to talk about that I did. Specifically a composite shot I did, but I'll talk about that after this. So, when it comes to keyframing, all of these, the position, the scale, and the rotation, these three values are only affect the image in relation to what's called the anchor point. So when you change the position, you're changing the position, you're changing the pixel coordinates the anchor point is set to. So by default, if I were to rotate it, by default, everything's set to the exact pixel perfect center of the image. What if you don't want that? That's why you can change the anchor point. You can say, well, what if I want the anchor point to be in the center of this character's eyeball? You can do that. Now, the anchor point is in the eyeball. So now everything relating to the position, the scale, and the rotation happens in relation to where the anchor point is. So that's a thing. The anchor point matters for some effects. In fact, I do have a good example of one way you can change the anchor point to achieve a neat effect in a previous video I've already done, but I don't want to go into that right in this moment. Keyframing is when stuff gets complicated, but it's also the basic bread and butter of video editing, sometimes. Depending on what you want to make. For me, it kind of is. So for this segment, this is when I go, okay, here's footage,
okay, so
gotta stop it. Gotta stop it and talk about stuff. But this lasts a long time. In fact, from the very beginning to the very end of it, this takes up over 33 seconds of non-stop, nothing moving, just talking. That's a little boring. So partway through, I'm just gonna play it.
Okay, so it turns out Dragon Force is the power within Urza spoke about. I have no idea if it was the same power that Simon spoke about,
And
but either
boom.
way, this brings up a lot of questions like, how did she know about Dragon?
It's really boring just looking at a flat image with no movement on it for 33 seconds at a time. That's not gonna work. So this fun little thing, which incidentally was a nightmare, not quite a nightmare. It's less of a nightmare than you'd think. Like, there's a lot of keyframes when it comes to that, but it's way simpler than it looks. So this is literally just... He rotates a bit, roughly in time with a certain beats of the music. It's just that, for like 20 seconds. While moving from right to left. Very simple effect. Very cute effect, in my opinion. So it's like, oh, he's rotating in time to the music. That's cute. How it's achieved is very simple. First up, keyframes. Well, position. The position, it starts here, and then, I overshot that by a million years. And then over the course of the next 16 seconds, 16 and a half seconds, it goes from completely off screen to the right to completely off screen to the left. Simple. Easy. Then comes the rotation keyframes. Because, so for every single movement, you need 2 keyframes. Where he starts and where he ends. So for this... And so for every single turn, there's 2 keyframes. One at minus 10 degrees and one at plus 10 degrees. And I've timed them all pretty perfectly, at least as perfectly as I reasonably can.
Either way, this brings up a lot of questions like, how did she know about...
So it's constantly changing from minus 10 degrees to plus 10 degrees. And it counts this in terms of clockwise rotation. So there's a lot of that going on there. That's just kind of fun. And then after that, everything just kind of fades back to normal. And now the video proper starts playing again. So it goes from there's video, there's video, there's video. Wait, now it's an image. Gotta go through this whole spiel. Now it's video again. Again, I did this by going... In fact, it's a little more obvious how I did it this time because there's the episode marker here. I took this part. In fact, I went ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba, timing it exactly with where the narration demands it. I went here, options, export frame. That's how the episode marker, which no longer exists in track 4, was able to stay in this image. Because for this bit, the episode tracker is not represented in the timeline, but it is represented in the image that is being manipulated. So that's how that happens. I want to go back and talk about a really fun composite shot I made. Where is it? There it is. All right, cool. So I want to show off this one effect I did. It looks really simple, but there's actually a lot going on. So let's talk about this.
Gas is supposed to be based on a 7-star constellation that totally isn't one line away from being the Big Dipper.
There we go. There's a lot going on there. So, first up, it's a composite shot. So what's going on in the composite shot? Well, first off, it's a single image. I took that image directly from, like usual, the exact instant before the composite shot starts. So it's a video, now it has to be an image. So I took this, exported that frame, saved that frame to my hard drive, and then imported it back into HitFilm. There it is, right there. Then I made a composite shot. This is at least three layers. That looks way more complicated than it really is, I promise. Here's what happens. First up, the bottom layer is literally just this. The middle layer is a mask. So what I did here, I'm just gonna get rid of this for now. Wait, what? What even? Okay, I gotta go through this again because something ain't right about all of it. Nope, nope. I know what happens. Okay, I forgot how some certain effects work. So this is a mask. So what exactly is that mask? Well, it's this segment. I got this segment clipped out of the original image here. In fact, if I were to turn this off. So basically, here's what happens. Let me just... Not the transform settings of the mask, I need the transform settings of the actual thing I'm talking about. So there's a lot of fun stuff happening here. First up, I'm going to show you how to turn this mask... Oh, boy. You go down there for now. We'll get to you later. Alright, still being weird, but that's okay. Oh, wait, never mind. I know why that's doing that. So there's another effect going on. I'm not doing a very good job explaining this, but don't worry about that. I'll explain what I just turned off in a moment. So if I were to go back to this actual mask here... Set everything back to the way it should look. Hey, you know what this is? An exact copy for with an effect added of the original image that I imported from here. There is a reason I need to do this, because this... Basically, here's what happens. When you draw a mask, it doesn't create a new layer on top of what you were already working with. It instead takes that layer you were already working with and says, okay, cut out everything else except everything in between these mask points. Which in this case is this line. You can see where it is in the original image. First, it's right here. Now it's just this line. So that's what this is. When I turn on the mask, it says, okay, everything except this segment with an effect on it, or two effects, I think, all of that gets removed. It is transparent, does not exist. Only this matters. Only this can be seen, but the entire everything else can be affected. So what can I do with that? Well, I can hit undo a bunch, and manipulate this with the transform settings. This is when I can go, okay, change the scale a little bit so that it matches. I didn't do it exactly in this order. There's a lot of manipulation happening, but this is just kind of doing it in reverse to how I reset everything. There's some rotation stuff now. There's some position manipulation, and then again, anchor point manipulation. Now the anchor point is centered on the center of this line here. That matters for reasons. Because then, oops, what's that? Let me just, that's back now. Adjust the transparency again, and I believe that is it. Cool. So what are we looking at here? We're now looking at this mask on top of this footage. This is the original footage. I drew a mask of this part, added some effects, and manipulated it to this position. Because, hey, that visually sells the joke. That, hey, this fun spell thing that this character is about to cast and supposedly destroy Natsu with, this is, hey, if you look at it close enough, it's one line away from being the Big Dipper. Boom, now it is the Big Dipper. That's the joke. But how did I do the reveal? Because it starts like this, and then over the course of a number of frames, ooh, the reveal happens. What's up with that? So, this is where that effect that I turned off earlier comes into play, the set matte effect. So what this does, as far as my understanding goes, is if you go into the settings, you can set a source layer. So what that basically means, yeah, you can set a source layer, change these other settings. What this means is that with the settings I have set up, as long as this transition layer, or the transition plane, is over top the layer that has the set matte effect that is parented to that transition plane, even if this transition plane is invisible, which it is. When I say no, this doesn't physically exist, this set matte effect looks at that transition plane and goes, oh, that's over top me. I don't exist now. I've used this effect a couple times. Namely, Dalton, you'll remember this, in... Oh, I can't show this on stream, can I? I don't think I can show that. I don't think I can show anything from that project on stream yet, because it's not ready to go. Never mind. I'll show you that later then. So that's how I do all of this. Then I add some position keyframes to the transition plane. That's how the line that is this mask can feasibly come into existence. This isn't something I learned from just fiddling around for a few hours. I had to watch a video tutorial specifically for how to do an effect like this, namely with the text reveal. So I guess I can talk about that project thing in terms of that. Hey Dalton, remember that one video, or the two videos that we have as pre-edits of stuff that I can't talk about on stream? You know those text reveals that I have all over the place? Namely, in the beginning and at the end? This is how I did that. I don't think I have the original project files on my hard drive, but I have the exports. Actually, no, I do have one of them on my hard drive, because I remember seeing it earlier today. So, there's a lot going on in terms of setting things to exact positions, but overall, not much happening. It's just, I drew a mask, I positioned the mask, I added, because I wanted to, a couple of effects, because I thought that made things blend a little bit better with the surrounding stuff. Because if I didn't have the effects, that looks a bit weird. That doesn't look like it matches up at all with either of the with any of the three lines surrounding it. So I had a little bit of a glow to basically go, okay, it's something is there. Then I added the neon glow so that, oops, you know, that little glow outline that's around it, now it kind of matches. It's a little rough in terms of right here, but it works. From a distance, you can't tell. Or at least you can tell only just barely enough to recognize that it's there. And even then, most people won't really care because it sells the joke. Shut up. So I did all that. All of it, this composite shot happens. And then also I decided to give it some keyframe. I give it more keyframes. And have a bit of a music track. Because that sells the joke better. It's just funny. With this, it's really... there is a lot more going on. So, I changed the position so that, hey, we're now, instead of just zooming into the center, which is roughly where Jalal is, we're zooming into here. Then I added the zoom, which is just a scaling effect. Then I made sure that it rotates because it's crazy. Just stuff like that. A lot of simple things. God, shut up. It's fine, head film. Don't worry about it. A lot of simple things that build on top of each other to create an effect worth talking about. Whoop! It's the Big Dipper. Who'da thunk? That's what that's for. I think it's funny. There's not a lot else to talk about. I've been talking for a while. There is this little bit here where there's already
Jalal next pulls out Abyss Break.
There's already a music track going. Like, in fact, right after this, right after that whole spiel that I went on, hey, now we got a bit of an epic track. I use this track in all of my Arc Analysis videos to basically kind of mark, this is the big climactic battle. Except I use it twice here because it's vague here. So here, this music starts playing, but then this happens. This is basically an Omega Death Kill You spell. So when this shows up, music fades down, it gets quieter, and another music track starts playing in its place, while this is still playing. So if I were to actually show you what that sounds like, it's more Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia music. This is basically my way of subconsciously telling you something is extraordinarily wrong here, and I have to put a pause, kind of, or at least tamper down what was previously happening, because the thing he's doing now, this big thing, is supposed to be a huge plot point, but then, oops, other stuff happens because of plot reasons, and then it fades away. And then this music fades back. So if I were to show you what that sounds like, this was kind of hard to do because it's a balancing act, quite literally speaking. I don't want to have the Pokemon Ranger sound music too loud because that cuts into my narration and also the music. And I don't want to have the music too loud because then the effect I'm trying to go for with the Pokemon Ranger music is imperceptible. So there's a fine line I have to walk there, and it took a little bit to do, but I'm happy with this result. Is there anything else here that I can talk about? Aside from the last ending bit, which I will go over, because it's fun. It doesn't look like it, no. Okay, so then the final thing I do for all of these videos, aside from just the ending bit, is this little bit where I go into how am I going to rank this entire arc on a scale of 1 to 10. Just like to make it real easy and simple and all that fun junk. So, what happens here is the whole thing is a composite shot, and then there's stuff that happens later on at the end. So let's go into that composite shot. Wow, there's a lot of stuff here. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 layers of stuff happening in this composite shot. That looks very, very confusing and intimidating at first. But let's break it down. First up, this background, which I've used so much in the other videos, is constantly there and does not leave. That is the grounding point. This visually lays the groundwork for everything else. If this wasn't there, everything else would be confusing. Next, after a bit, when based on when I want it to happen in relation to the narration. These 3 lines appear, and also these 2 numbers. So what happens here is it's more really simple stuff. I go into each one to the transform settings, and all I do is change the opacity. But what are these layers? Don't remember last night when we were talking about stuff and I mentioned you can add plane layers to do stuff? Or was it this morning? I don't remember. That's what these are. These are color-coded to be plane layers. But wait, they look like lines. They're both. Because you can see down here in the scale settings, the X value is at 75%, and the Y value is at 0.7. So it's wide, but really thin. So it looks like just a normal line. We can demonstrate this by taking the Y value of the scale and going, whoa. So this is a plane layer. In fact, all 3 of these are. Normally, in fact, I'm going to demonstrate this. New layer, plane layer, new plane 5, just white. Boom. Well, normally, when I create a new plane layer, first up, it goes to the very top, which annoys me. Second, it covers the entire screen, which also annoys me. Third, if you go into the transform settings and look at the scale, you see this thing? Normally, the X and Y values are locked together. So when I bring this down, both the X and the Y values will change at the same rate at the same time when I do this. That's not going to happen if I want a line. Yes, I could technically, in theory, just draw a very thin rectangular mask, but that's dumb and I don't support it. Also, there's a much easier way to very concisely make it happen. Shut up, phone. Get out of here. So what I do here is if you click this, it unlinks them. Now I can mess with the X scale or the Y scale. Sorry. Better way to demonstrate this. I can mess with the X scale or the Y scale or both in different ways. That's very important for this effect. So I'll get rid of that. That's how I do this. The values have to be different for between this line and these 2 lines, because one of them is vertical and the other two, well, one of them is horizontal, the other 2 are vertical. I don't know how words work. So, all of this, these 5 layers, the 3 plane layers and the 2 text layers, they're just keyframing the opacity. It goes from 0 to 100% over the course of 30 frames or half a second. In fact, no, it's over a full second. So if I were to turn these off, so we just look at the line, over the course of a full second, it goes from non-existent and completely transparent to now it's a solid black line. All 5 of these do this, but they're all offset by 15 frames or a quarter of a second. So this start layer is offset by the line by a quarter of a second. This one is offset by this one by a quarter of a second. This one is offset by this one by a quarter of a second. All of that. It's a lot of just simple keyframing stuff and letting that build on top of each other to achieve this effect. The same thing is done with these 3 image layers later on. After a number of seconds, they come into existence. And the same kind of keyframing opacity comes into play. So there's that. Another effect I've employed to try to get the same effect is... No, I just want to delete that. remove. Cool. Another effect I've done was basically I took this bit, or rather I took these 5 layers here. I did this in the first arc analysis video I ever made, and it was, I didn't want to do it anymore, but I could again. Basically what I did here was I took those 5 and this background image. I duplicated the background image, put that image on top of these 5 layers, which made up the timeline, and I made a mask of that, a rectangular mask, around all of this bit, and then I keyframed that shrinking. Not moving, shrinking. Because since this background is not one solid, continuous color, if this starts moving in any weird way, it's very easy to notice that it's moving. Whereas if a mask is shrinking, well, that's different. That adds to a feeling of these are now being revealed. But I didn't want to do that anymore. So now I keyframe each individual opacity or movement, whichever I choose. I've done it either way, to whatever result I want. Then later on, after a few seconds, boom, keyframe that into existence. An important thing to note: this other keyframe in the middle. So, a lot of, when it comes to keyframing stuff, a lot of that, in order for it to feel natural, requires some kind of basic understanding of how things move naturally. So, what I could do is just remove this keyframe, so that now you can see, oh, it could literally, so this object could just literally fall into existence at an even rate and then stop, or it could have a little bit of extra added realistic motion where it pops into place, or rather where it bounces, because that's what real objects do in reality. When you apply proper physics to an object, things don't just move and then stop. There's a bit of whoop. There's a bit more flow to it, and it feels more natural. I do another effect like this later on, but I'll go into that when I get into it. So there's that, and then in between these keyframes, nothing moves. Then I move it. And as I move it, this final layer, which is text, also comes into existence. And it's also keyframed. A lot. So there's a lot to talk about with this, at least an amount. So first, first up, the scale and position are keyframed. Woo! So because I didn't want to mess with the anchor point, because that would ruin the effect I have later on. At least later on in this exact sequence here. So then, it makes it look like it's, hey, I'm here now! It looks like it's growing and rising out. So that happens, then it falls and rotates a bit, and then I can now see why it looks a little bit weird. Because I messed this up, because now it looks like while it's in the air, it rotates a little bit, but then some other force pushes it in the other direction. What that's supposed to be is the ground, which is this other position point, where it then bounces up. I messed this up. What I wanted to do was have an effect where the thing pops into existence, falls a bit while rotating, hits the ground, and then kind of bounces around and then is now back in its normal position. I didn't do it so great here. Another sign that keyframing stuff is hard. Then nothing else interesting happens here in this composite shot, because then the rest of that happens in here, where get rid of the music. So a lot of other stuff happens. Opacity stuff is keyframed, and a sound effect is played. I'm just gonna play the bit beat for beat. So, haha, I'm talking about ranking stuff. Then, so first up, I need to go back to a solid color background. So now you can see what's happening here. First off, this needs to be blurred a bit and keyframed opacity down. Because this composite shot, once this text pops up, is no longer the main focus of the shot. So I keyframe a blur effect so that this happens. As this text falls into place, it gets blurred, and now it's no longer the main focus. Because now the eye doesn't, for many reasons, the eye no longer wants to look at what's back here. That's irrelevant. One, it's darker, and this text is way brighter. Two, it's blurrier, and this is in sharp focus. Three, this is literally right here smack dab in the center of the frame, and it's moving. So the eye is instantly trained to see, boom, that's important. And that's exactly what I want them to focus on. So there's a lot of keyframes here on the text. Let's go into it. So first up, you can tell opacity is keyframed. I'm just going to remove this bit. So we can now look at just the text on its own. So the opacity is keyframed, as is the rotation. So it looks like it's, boom, falling into place. Which it is. So it's falling into place. Then once it hits the ground, it bounces up a bit, and then hits the ground again. So it's not just, boop. It acts more like a real object would in the physical world. Because if I were to, I can't really show this on camera very well, but if I were to take this Gatorade bottle and just drop it, it wouldn't just, boop, and then stay there without bouncing. Physics are still in play after it hits the ground. So it has to bounce a bit. So I play with that in the scale keyframes. So that's what that is. And then also the home run bat sound effect from Melee, because it's very fun. So if I were to play with the narration and the music and the video all back in place, this is what this part sounds like.
An easy 10 out of 10, no question.
All of that because, hey, I'm actually saying that this could have been, this arc I've just spent 45 minutes talking about could have been amazing. It could have been this. That's really tempting and really important. So it gets the sound effect and the blurring out of that and the darkening of the background. Then both of those fade to black, and then we fade to the normal footage for the ending. So that is, roughly speaking, how I edit my videos. A lot of just going through the footage, rather, a lot of going through the narration, seeing what the footage, what the video needs, then going through the original footage and dropping into place. Mostly that, 95% that, 90% that. It's also cutting back to the original footage when I need to use it to make a point. That's like 5%. Probably more than 5%, like 8%. Sometimes I have my own footage that I shoot myself, and that gets edited. Sometimes I need to make neat little composite shots. That'll happen when needed. And then other times I need to literally cut everything and freeze everything to talk about stuff. It's a lot of just simple, basic effects, except for that one composite shot with the masking in it. That one was a bit complicated. All this in service of the greater narrative, or the greater story I'm trying to tell. It's a lot of that. Okay. So yeah, Fun times. I need to get ready for paint stream tomorrow. That'll be fun. I did paint up, I did add the second coat of paint to the robot thing. Looks way better now. In fact, I love it. But that's for tomorrow. For tonight, I'm gonna call it and do some other stuff. Namely, I've got a different model I need to paint. And then another I want to start, maybe, probably. We'll see. So that's it for right now. I'm gonna go to bed. Not bad. I'm not gonna sleep for a while. That's all this. It's a lot of little things in service of one big thing. So yeah. I'm gonna go chill and paint. Hope you all learned stuff about editing.